Okay, so we are now recording. I'm going to share my slides, which you should now see, I hope, on your screens. So this week, as you may have gathered, I don't have a theme for the call, so we're going to focus more on some of the recent developments, allow a bit more time for chat. If anyone has anything that you want to sort of bring up, there should be ample time to do that this week. So a bit more of a sort of relaxed agenda. So as always, I'm going to run through some of the news headlines from the email that I think most of you would have received earlier on today. I'm not going to go through everything. I'm just going to sort of signpost those, which I think in particular interest for various reasons, which are certainly worth your attention, which obviously we normally do, but normally with a little less time. So taking these from the top, Mark McFadden has done a write-up from the IETF meeting of, gosh, roughly a month ago now. It seems longer than that, but it is only this time last month. We were coming back from the meeting in Vancouver. What he's written up, he's summarised the discussions in a number of the birds of a feather sessions, as well as the DELEG working group, and unsurprisingly, because he was one of the prime movers in having it sort of restructured, the sort of DNRG, decentralisation of the Internet Research Group. Given he's sort of picked out, I think it was 3 of the BOFs as well as DELEG and DNRG, thought that was noteworthy, as some of those were of particular interest. Notably the NASA BOF, which was exploring options to have a sort of predetermined routing for traffic, which was very secure, and you could actually validate when you receive the traffic it had followed your predetermined route through your predetermined servers. I'm personally skeptical about that, but nevertheless it was an interesting discussion. So if you weren't in those BOFs, or indeed perhaps haven't fully caught up with the DELEG working group, then you'll find it very sort of good use of your time to take a look at Mark's thoughtful summary and get some of his reflections on it. I'll just sort of skate over the next 2, other than just highlight the second bullet, which just a summary of some of the open 6 of the open resolvers, all of which got support for encrypted DNS, with a summary of the key features of each of them. So again, you might find that useful just as an aid memoir on some of the major open resolvers. And then jumping to the bottom of the screen, since we talked about blockchain-based naming systems last week, there's a helpful summary of the Ethereum naming system. If you just wanted a reminder as to the key points of the ENS in particular, as probably I guess the blockchain sort of based naming system that's got the most momentum, I think. Although hopefully the DNS Research Federation will have data to confirm or deny that assertion later on this year, when they take another look at the various services. Okay, other things. Cloudflare have got in their blog within the last week, I've just taken a look at the sort of NIST's first 3 post-quantum standards that came out a few weeks ago, so you can get Cloudflare's take on those 3. There's also an interesting look in Bleeping Computer about a sort of yet another piece of malicious content. I'm not sure how you say it. Msapej. not sure, but probably not that. But anyway, that's what it's been dubbed. Um, which, as do other sort of pieces of malware, uses the DNS, specifically DNS tunneling, for its command and control server communications. So got a link to the DNS there, so I thought that was worth a mention. Also, APNIC were at the APAC DNS forum, and they summarised some of the things that they took part in there specifically. So it's not a summary of the whole of the APAC DNS forum, but the elements that APNIC participated in within it. So if you've not had a chance to sort of catch up on the APAC DNS symposium, you might find that useful. Just at least a partial view of some of the activities. And then a couple of compliance linked things coincidentally came out from separate sort of places this week. So firstly, Akamai published a piece looking at the use of secure APIs and DORA compliance, and then separately Vicara just looked at compliance frameworks that touch on the DNS. So two compliance related pieces this week, and you may recall with Michael's help we're going to revisit NIS2 in a few weeks' time, so that those both caught my eye, probably more for that reason. So other compliance related stuff. And then bottom of the screen, I didn't put this on the headline so you didn't miss it, but I just sort of touched on it. Thought it was worth just highlighting on the call. If you've not noticed it already, the sort of registration for the next IETF meeting is open. So the Secretariat are sort of doing what they said they would do, of opening up registration somewhat earlier than they had done previously. So a reminder that the meeting, if you attend in person, is in Dublin, but you can apply to register both in person or remotely, with super early rates available until the middle of September. And they are quite, certainly in-person saving is quite significant. There's I think over $300 saving versus the standard pricing. So if you're planning to attend, worth registering sooner rather than later. And also a reminder, if you're planning to attend remotely, fee waivers are widely available. If the cost of attending remotely is a barrier, then you should find it fairly straightforward to register without needing to pay the fee. And the meeting itself, but on the slide, is the very beginning of November, literally immediately after the finish of the next RIPE meeting, which itself follows on immediately after the next OARC meeting. So you have over 2 weeks, if you include OARC, of a sort of back-to-back interesting stuff. Sorry, just knocked my keyboard. So firstly, OARC and RIPE in Prague, running over a weekend, the following sort of Monday through Friday for OARC and then RIPE respectively. And then on the Saturday, that's the start of the hackathon in Dublin. And then the meeting proper, IETF meeting, sort of kicks off on the Monday or Sunday evening if you count the welcome reception. So that's all sort of coming up in a few months' time. Various other things of interest. I won't go through all of these. I'll just pick out two. One is the Internet Governance Project, part of Georgia Tech, if I remember rightly, with Milton Muller, I think, is the sort of lead academic there. They're hosting their annual workshop in Atlanta this time. I think last year, if I remember rightly, it was in Brussels, in mid-October. Topically, obviously, looking at AI and whether AI needs governance. Knowing Milton, I suspect he'll lean towards no, Whether you agree with that, I'll leave you to decide. But anyway, they have 2 days worth of discussion on that broad theme. And then the other sort of news item over the weekend, nothing at all to do with the DNS, not even close. But you may have seen the headlines that the CEO of Telegram was arrested when he landed in France, which has prompted a lot of comments on social media in particular as to the reasons for that. And depending on your point of view, that's either a threat to privacy, or it's a significant boost potentially to addressing online safety, online harms. Two sides of the same kind, coin, depending on your perspective. But anyway, no doubt that will run for a little while as he processes through the French legal system. In terms of deadlines, we've got a sort of few looming, one of which is literally today, and that's if you plan to put forward any proposed content for the ICANN DNS symposium, the deadline is today. You've just missed a deadline of call for presentations for the RIPE 89 meeting. I did look at the website yesterday and it didn't look like that call for presentations have been extended. I left it on the side just on the off chance it might be. But you've either just missed it or if it is extended, you may have a few days. But if it is extended, probably to the end of this week at tops. And then, as you can see, on the 30th, there's a deadline for material for the IGF for a sort of a video sort of piece they're pulling together, and then various things running through over the next few weeks. But the main one for today is call for content for the ICANN DNS symposium. So push that in today if you want to present at that event. Yeah, and then there's various other stuff. Other things I just mentioned, just briefly, the just middle of the screen there, OARC. The early bird rate for OARC is quite generous, so that runs through to the beginning of October. So if you plan to go to the OARC meeting in Prague, you've got a few weeks before that rate increases. Top of the screen, though, you'll see the ITF 121 meeting. The super early registration cutoff is the 16th, so you've got a sort of couple of weeks or so, 3 weeks probably, roughly, if you want to make that sort of roughly, I think it's about $300 saving versus the standard rate. Okay, in terms of events, we've got the APNIC event coming up in Wellington in a few days' time. So have fun if you're going to Wellington. Otherwise, as we were just sort of talking just before the start of the call, the ICANN DNS Symposium week is at the end of September, or third week of September, in Santa Marta, Colombia. And as you can see, there's plenary sessions on the Monday, the LAC domain names week, well, day technically, on the Tuesday, the symposium itself on the Wednesday, and then OARC are hosting a community day on the Thursday. So quite a good, I think, sort of week, certainly based on last year in Da Nang. That was a very good event, so well worth attending, I suggest, if you're able. And then, as always, plenty of other stuff coming up, including, as I mentioned them, you'll see towards the bottom of the screen, the OARC 43 meeting, 26th, 27th October. Immediately afterwards, you've got RIPE 89, both of which are in Prague, and leading into the ITF meeting immediately afterwards in Dublin. So fun couple of weeks of travelling, particularly those of you coming from further away. If you're committed to Europe for 2 weeks or so. I think, yeah, that's largely it for me, other than just a reminder, next week we're going to be talking about DNS abuse league tables, so returning to the theme of DNS, as well as touching on a few other things such as AI and privacy and such like, with the DNS Research Federation team. And then they're joining us the following week as well to talk about a new facility or offering they have called Trust Checker. And then the sort of last one I mentioned for now is as you can see, as I mentioned earlier, Michael will be joining us to talk about NIS2 again on the 16th, which is almost exactly a month before NIS2 comes into force across the European Union. And then the following Monday, when I'll be in Santa Marta, anyone else that's there, let's do some drinks. If it doesn't clash with anything else, which I don't think it does, we'll do drinks on the Monday evening, which will be fun. I'm looking at my keyboard again. And more stuff sort of taking us through, as you can see, right the way to the sort of middle of November. Okay, that's probably it from me for now. As I said, it was just a quick run through some of the topical things from the last week or so. So let me just pause there and open up to see if anyone else oh, I can see, yeah, sorry, just seeing in the chat, Michael has pointed out you get the train in between, potentially from Prague to Dublin. Presumably, a boat might be involved for part of the way as well. But good point, though. That you don't necessarily need to fly from Prague to Dublin if you're planning to do both of those. But let me just stop talking at you there and see, does anyone have anything else that you want to bring up this week? And if so, pop it in the chat if that's easiest, or just unmute and talk. It'd be good to hear somebody else's voice other than my own, I'm sure. See anyone typing at the moment. Just give you a moment or two to see if you do have anything else to share this week. It's not looking like it. In which case, let's pause there then. So reminder, this time next week, I'll be back to our sort of normal approach with the DNS Research Federation, talking about DNS abuse league tables and other things, which should be a really interesting discussion. So let's call a halt then to proceedings then. So shorter call than normal, get 35 minutes back, which is no bad thing. So hope you have a great week, everyone. Enjoy the time and look forward to catching up with you and hearing all about DNS abuse league tables same time next week. So catch you all then. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks. Take care, Andrew.
Bye all.
Thank you.